All right. Welcome in to this episode of Quick Flips. My name is David. I've got Matt here with me. We are going to talk about the Chicago Cubs finally making a trade acquisition in this offseason. It's one that's kind of been rumored for a long time, dating back through last deadline, where the Chicago Cubs have traded for Miami Marlins starting pitcher Edward Cabrera. Cabrera is a guy who throws 99, 100 miles an hour with a 96 mile an hour changeup. Curveball is one of the best curveballs in the business, but he has struggled with injury issues and control as he has grown into the pitcher he is right now. But right now, he looks kind of like a pretty good pitcher. Last season was his best season by far. So, Matt, first of all, just a quick thought on Edward Cabrera. Obviously, you've seen a decent amount of him with the Marlins, playing the Braves quite a bit. What's your thoughts on Edward Cabrera?
Yeah, so Edward Cabrera is very interesting. He's a good pitcher. He's he throws decently hard. Upper mid to upper 90s, which is good. Pretty good slider, changeup. The stuff's really good. The command is kind of been his downfall at times. Career 4.5 walks per nine. This year, he improved a lot. He dropped his walks per nine by a pretty good bit, down from 4.7 to 3.1. So that was kind of coincided with his best season of his career so far, in which he put up a 3.53 ERA. I guess the other big thing with Edward Cabrera that has to be talked about here is going to be the injuries. He has a career high this past year, pitching 137 innings, making 26 starts. Before this past year, he had never made more than 20 starts in a season, and never pitched 100 innings in a season. So I think that's kind of important to remember, and we'll talk about the package back for him here in a little bit, but I think the package might be diminished just a little bit because of the injury history here. Yeah. But the Marlins probably feel like they're selling high. He just had a great season, 137 innings, was decently healthy enough to where you believe he could be healthy this year. It wasn't another injury-ridden season, even though he didn't make every start. Put up a great year and made some improvements when he was out there as well. So, you're kind of selling high, selling that potential, and he's got a lot of control left. So definitely a good pickup for the Cubs. Good, at least they're taking a shot on somebody who could be really, really, really good. There's a lot of upside here, so that's good.
Yeah, I'll target the few minutes of talk from the Cubs perspective here, because what the Cubs currently have in the rotation is an awful lot of guys whom are going to be, decent. I mean, you're pretty safe that Matt Boyd's going to be a decent pitcher, especially after last season when he was really, really good. Jamison Tyone is going to be a decent pitcher for you next season. Shodi Minaga will at least be a startable pitcher. I'm not a big fan of his, but he's going to be fine. He had Cy Young votes in 2024. Like he's a good option in your rotation. And Cade Horton coming off a Rookie of the Year campaign where he finished second to Drake Baldwin. I mean, those four guys lock you down positions. You feel really good about going into this season with those guys, being able to sub Colin Ray into that long relief spot in the bullpen as your sixth man for Edward Cabrera, with the guy with this much upside velocity. He's such a different look than all the rest of these guys in this rotation. I think it makes this group immensely better. And the Cubs have the depth to do it. They have the depth to make a trade like this, to take a big swing on big time stuff like Edward Cabrera. And I'm really, really excited about it from a Cubs fan's perspective, because this is something they haven't done since like Jake Arrieta, probably, where they went out and got a guy with some command struggles that has nasty stuff, and they want to try to make him better, put him in front of a really good defense, give him some, confidence to be able to throw those strikes. I just feel like Edward Cabrera can really flourish. And on top of, what we're about to kind of address from the Marlins perspective, this trade package of prospects, on top of that, it's you open up 3 years of Edward Cabrera, right? He'd get all 3 years of his arbitration, and the Cubs are perfectly, I'm sure, willing to go ahead and pay higher than normal, higher than expected average values for those arbitration years, where they'll get a hopefully top end starting pitcher here for 3 seasons at well under market value costs. So I think that's the idea here from the Cubs perspective. I really, really like this move. I think it's one that we've been talking about for, if you guys joined us for our trade deadline pod, I was talking about Edward Cabrera that day. We were talking about Joe Ryan, that the Cubs needed to trade. And Owen Caissie was a guy mentioned in all those trade talks that they need to trade for a starter. They have finally done it. The trade package returning to the Marlins will be Owen Caissie. As I mentioned, he's, depending on who you ask, he's the Cubs' first, second, or third prospect. I think he's pretty interchangeable with Moises Ballesteros and Jackson Wiggins at this point in terms of prospect rankings. They're all very good prospects. Pick your poison, right? Outfielder that can play defense in both center field and the corners versus a positionless guy who's a better bat versus a dynamic right-handed pitcher. They're all pretty good prospects, right? The secondary piece is Christian Hernandez. You might recognize him from a few years back when Pipeline dropped him into the Cubs' top 5 right after signing from the DSL. Like he was unfairly overhyped at the beginning of his career. Was Christian Hernandez. He's still an intriguing prospect, very, very fast, got a ton of stolen bases in the Cubs minor league system. He's a good hitter, but I think he struggles with like bat to ball skills, right? Being able to optimize putting the ball in play with authority. And then the other guy is Edgardo De Leon, who is the Cubs like 20th ranked prospect. He is a first base only DH type of hitter, but he's a pretty good looking hitter, right? So Matt, with 3 position players, no pitchers involved in this deal, really the Cubs a top 3 prospect, and then like a 10th to 15th ranked prospect, and then a top 20 prospect as the total package. What do you think of that deal for the Marlins? So
I actually kind of like what the Marlins are doing here, because if you look at the Marlins' perspective, they're a low payroll team. They're never going to spend, or at least in their current state, aren't going to spend a whole lot of money. Maybe if they started winning and got people really excited down there, they might spend a little bit more. But they're going to operate in a way kind of like the Rays. And when they brought in Peter Bendix, we talked about this on the show on Monday night. They brought in the Rays. That's their method. So one thing that the Rays have done really well with was kind of trading from excess and developing pitchers so well that they could trade a pitcher for some position player help that has some high upside at times. You kind of look at some of the history of really good Rays trades they've made, or big trades, maybe not good trades every time, but big trades they've made. And you think about guys like Blake Snell. They traded Blake Snell. They had a lot of good pitchers. And I don't think the return from that is particularly – I don't remember exactly what the return from that was. I don't think it panned out particularly well. I know that they got back some pitchers in that trade. Tyler Glasnow is a trade that seems to have panned out pretty well for them. They traded from excess. They wanted to go ahead and get off a pitcher that has been injured a lot. And they traded back in – when they traded Matthew Liberatore for Randy Arozarena. That's another big one that they made, and that one really well for the Rays. So the Marlins are kind of in that same cloth. And kind of the big thing to me is if you're one of these teams like the Rays, the Marlins, I think minimizing the risk of a player and you have to capitalize on value of the player. If you feel like he's really risky but he's really valuable right now, you might want to move him. And the thing I like about this from the Marlins standpoint is that they got back a major league ready piece. And the Marlins in the past have traded, big time pitchers, big time players. You can think back to, and this wasn't a pitcher, but think back to the Christian Yelich trade where they traded for a bunch of low A guys or double A guys. And, eventually Lewis Brinson got to the big leagues, but he was terrible. And they just did a bunch of dart throws. This isn't really dart throws. Owen Caissie's been in the big leagues at times. He's killed minor league pitching. He's a pretty good prospect, and I know Cubs fans have really liked him for a long time. And I'll tell you, kind of he's in a similar, and I don't, I haven't watched him enough to know about his swing and everything, but kind of his profile is a little bit similar to Kyle Stowers, who just had a great breakout year for the Marlins. Kind of corner outfield guy, good power, strikes out a little too much, and Kyle Stowers has figured it out with the Marlins, put up a 150 WRC plus last year. Owen Caissie could be a similar type of piece to that. And I think that, if you're the Marlins, bringing in a guy who could be a big time star hitter for a pitcher who, while Edward Cabrera is good, I kind of doubt he ever hits that like ace level upside he might have had. And the injuries are a big problem. Like the last thing the Marlins want to do is be like a couple years ago where they had all these great pitchers. They had Sandy and they had Yuri Perez and they had Luzardo and they had all these guys, and every single one of them was on the injured list. And their team was absolutely horrible. When before the season, you kind of expected them maybe not to be great, but you expected them to be at least, they're going to be like a round of 500 level team. But then they got all injured and then they were terrible. So that's kind of what they're trying to avoid here with this. And they took a couple dart throws on young position players. I mean, Hernandez is, like you said, he's such a toolsy guy. You never know how he might click for him one day. And then De Leon is an 18-year-old. I mean, or I think he's going to be 19 this season, and he's done pretty well in the the complex leagues and the low minors and the Dominican Summer League, all those types of things. So, there's that old saying, don't trade with the Rays, and we're going to find out if that has transitioned over to don't trade with the Marlins, because for the last year it seems like that might kind of be happening right now, where the Marlins are kind of like, if you trade with them, they might take something that you're not expecting, and you might be a little bit cautious about making that trade just because of who you're trading with. So I like the return for the Marlins, and it's gonna be interesting. It's a really interesting trade, kind of risky for both sides in a way. But not super risky for the Cubs, because I don't think I don't know what the Cubs' plans in the outfield are, and that's something that I was about to ask you about, because I know that a lot of the talk last year was like, if Kyle Tucker walks, we got a guy to take his place, Owen Caissie, and
I think the solution, the solution is pretty simple to me, right? It's Seiya Suzuki plays right field, Ian Happ plays left field. Seiya obviously had his troubles in right field, but playing the field last year, he had a 150 WRC plus, and as a DH last year, he had like a 110. So I think he's more comfortable playing the field, even if you lose a little bit in the outfield defensively with regards to the range and stuff. I think he's still acceptable there, and this is a contract year for him, so he's going to be out here trying to prove, hey, I can still play the outfield for multiple more seasons. I'm not just a DH. I think that he's going to be perfectly fine out there this season. Now, you do have two impending free agents for the Cubs in Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki in the corner outfield spots. You just traded away a corner outfielder. The thing I think that happens is the Cubs press the development of their first-round pick last year, Ethan Conrad, and he ends up in like Double-A by the end of the season and is kind of on deck to be the next guy in the corner outfield. The other option, of course, is to move one of your current infield prospects. And I think the options are maybe Matt Shaw, if you sign a third baseman or a second baseman in the coming weeks to the outfield. You think about moving him out there, or you think about signing an outfielder, right? Kyle Tucker is still a free agent.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Back up with him. And another free agent that's very familiar with the Cubs is Cody Bellinger. So they could make that move, try to get out ahead of losing two corner outfielders next offseason where the market isn't as good, but I don't know.
Right. And I was going to say that I think if I was a Cubs fan, I'd be more excited about the fact that you're trading away Owen Caissie, even more so maybe than getting Edward Cabrera, although I'd be excited about that too. But I think it shows that there's a willingness that they're going to invest more money into the outfield right now, because I don't think they would have traded Owen Caissie. That he's kind of been the guy that was in their plans, as if like, if we don't get Kyle Tucker back, he's the next guy up. And I know they've got Kevin Alcantara still. Obviously, as you mentioned, Seiya Suzuki could play the field, and then I guess Moises Ballesteros would DH. Yeah. Like, they've got some options internally, but I think that if you're a Cubs fan, I think you definitely are excited about the possibility that moving Caissie means you're looking to sign Cody Bellinger, or looking to bring back Kyle Tucker, or make another trade for a corner outfielder. I'm not sure who all might be available for that at this point, but like, I think that there's some this doesn't feel like a move that is this is the last move of the offseason type of thing.
No, I think the way to summarize it there is the Cubs will look to improve the lineup. the lineup could be improved in a number of different positions. I think the 4 guys I mentioned, you could toss Eugenio Suarez in there too. In terms of just adding a bat, right? I think they're
or Bregman.
Bregman, Bo, Bichette, and then Suarez, Tucker, Bellinger. I think one of those 5 is a Cub by the end of the month, right? Like I don't know which one, because those guys are going to be asking for a bunch of money, right? And we know Jed Hoyer's a little bit averse to spending money.
I think the only guy they would really pay would be Kyle Tucker. I don't know if they're like, I don't think
they want to pay Kyle Tucker.
I don't think they want to either, but I definitely don't think they're going to pay Bo Bichette. Like, I think that there's a chance they pay Kyle Tucker. They're not going to pay Bo Bichette.
There were rumors they were going to try to trade for Bo Bichette last year.
Well, they might like him, but Bo Bichette's going to be asking for an awful lot. And
if the ask is crazy for Bo, then I don't think Bo Bichette is a Cub. But I think if that ask ever becomes, because we've already seen Tucker might have to take a short-term deal with an early opt. If Bo has to take a shorter-term deal with an early opt, that he can prove he can play defense at a spot other than shortstop, right? Like, and he can't. He may not be able to play defense at shortstop. So maybe he wants to take that quick opt deal. He's only 28. Like I feel like it's real intriguing. I think Bregman probably takes the 4-year deal, but we're hearing him getting rumors for like 6 years, 170 from Boston.
Wow.
I'm like, I think he'd already be
that's crazy.
He'd already be a Red Sox at that point. But I think you've got a lot of competition.
Well, he's also a Boris client, so Boris doesn't operate in a way that
the Cubs have not been comfortable dealing with Boris. I don't know if you guys covered Imai and Boris. Boris kind of took the Cubs offer with Imai to the Astros, and the Astros gave him the 1-year opt, and that's what sent him to Houston. And
I didn't. We talked about Imai on the show Monday, but not really. So, we didn't go super in depth about his free agency,
right?
But in summary, I guess my final kind of point here is just I think this is a good move for both teams. Really, I was a little, when I saw that the Marlins were going to trade Edward Cabrera, I was a little bit skeptical on that being a good idea, because of just, I feel like the Marlins are at a point right now where they need to start kind of looking at, okay, this is going to be our core. We're going to get them in the big leagues for 2 years, and then we're going to have like a 3 or 4 year contention window while they're still under control. And, trading away part of that potential core that's going to be there a few more years for guys who are in low A is not really what I would have done. But the Marlins went and got a major league ready piece that they like, a couple other flyers that aren't, like Christian Hernandez probably won't pan out, but that's a guy that has a chance. Like, he's got a chance to pan out like crazy well. So we'll see. I think it's good. And then for the Cubs, I don't think the Cubs traded away anything that they were just totally opposed or to losing, and they got a pitcher that has a lot of upside too. And that rotation's starting to look pretty good, as you mentioned. You got I know you mentioned Shota Imanaga. If he's your 5 starter, like, that's fine. And then you got to remember Justin Steele should be back at some point. So we'll see what he looks like after the injury. But that's another kind of high upside type thing. He was really good a couple years ago. That's another guy to kind of look at and say, hey, just adding, if you have a rotation of Edward Cabrera hitting, Cade Horton backing up his couple months at the end of last year when he was in the big leagues and killing it, and then you bring in a Justin Steele who gets healthy, like, that's a big 3-name. That's a big top of the rotation. And then you got these other guys that we talked about. So I definitely think that was a good move. And congratulations to you and your Cubs on, I think it's a good trade. So
finally, right? Finally. It's been a minute. The Cubs have been killing the bullpen game. I think the signings have all been really good in the bullpen, but it's one of those where you build up that bullpen and you don't do anything else, which is how it kind of felt they were trending towards. I was just going to be like, well, this is just a horrible offseason. You spend all this money on these bullpen pieces that are kind of clearly these under the radar good signings, and you don't galvanize the offense, put somebody back in Tucker's place. I think that's just the next step, right? That's kind of the final cherry on top for this offseason. Get in bat to put in Tucker's place and get Edward Cabrera in the pitch lab, right? Get him working with these guys to maybe optimize the fastball a little bit. The Cubs have done a really good job of pulling good results out of their pitchers, and they're pitching Edward Cabrera in front of great defensive players. Yeah, I think this is the kind of deal that can really galvanize your season. It's not quite as impactful as the Tucker deal, maybe, but it's really exciting. And then, the last thing I want to close out on is that you mentioned that Caissie was like Kyle Stowers. I called him a Kyle Stowers starter kit on Twitter this morning. Marlins fans need to be excited about Owen Caissie. That is a guy he got traded for Yu Darvish in 2020. He's been working his way through the Cubs system for a long time. He made his debut this last year. He could be the right fielder to Kyle Stowers' left fielder with Marcy in center. That's a decent young outfield that in a couple years could have a couple of different 30 home run hitters in it. So I really like what the Marlins are doing. I think that's a group that can now, theoretically be powerful and impactful throughout the season here, and potentially give them a couple of guys that can, go out there and mash, give some danger in that lineup, because it's been a little bit scrappy the last few seasons. And so I'm excited to see how Stowers and Caissie get along over there. And I think that's it for us. Quick flips, not so quick today, 20 minutes. Yeah. A lot to talk about with regards to that. And we'll see you guys next time. Be ready to watching out for our shows every other Monday night here.
Yep. Still every other Monday. So not next Monday, a week after. And then, if we have another big move, there's still so many things out there to happen. Yeah. We'll pop on and do another one of these quick 10 to 20 minute or 22 minutes that we're at now things. So be on the lookout for it. And we're excited. Season's not too far away. So
please like, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you for joining us.